All right, it looks like we're all here together. So, hi everyone. Thank you for joining the members experience today. I have the pleasure to fill in for Giselle. Unfortunately, she couldn't make it today, so I'll give a little introduction of myself. I'm Hannah Hume. I'm the director of individual giving here at the museum, and it's great to see some really wonderful names that we recognize, some friendly faces, if you will. Today, we're going to be talking about Inside the Collection with the Curators, a really fun behind the scenes view of some of our upcoming and current and past acquisitions, plans for exhibitions, and really fascinating stories about some of the international projects and exhibitions that we haven't really talked about as an institution. There is going to be a Q&A session after the presentation, so if you do have questions, you can utilize that chat button at the bottom of your screen. I'll monitor it as we go along, and then you'll be welcome to kind of ask as much as you'd like at the end. So next slide, please, Casey. Before we get fully started, I would love to give our land acknowledgement as we do at the beginning of all of our programs. So we acknowledge the traditional homelands of the Lenape, also known as the Delaware, upon which the Newark Museum of Art resides. Next slide, please. All right, so to kick us off, I'm happy to introduce Catherine Evans, who is our interim co-director and CEO of the museum. Catherine is leading the way now for the entire museum, but you may have remembered her also leading the way for curatorial and collection strategies. So she's going to be giving us a little peek into some of our collections that are on loan. So Catherine, without further ado, please take it away.
Thanks, Hannah, and good afternoon. I guess it is afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. What I have to share is some really behind the scenes because not very many people get to see how art travels, the underbelly of commerce, really, and throughout the world. And here you see our fantastic pink crates, which I served as a courier recently on a trip to London for a major loan to a major exhibition at the Tate Modern. So, what I wanted to say before we kick in with our incredible team of curators is that you may know from previous talks and gatherings how works enter the collection, but you'll be hearing today a bit more about that. And but as I said in the beginning, I wanted to just sort of set the stage. So next slide, please, Casey. At the Tate Modern, just opening last 2 weeks ago, is a groundbreaking show called Nigerian Modernism. It really is introducing a new art history into the canon, one that had been previously eclipsed for all the reasons. We lent 12 artworks, the single largest lender to an exhibition of more than 300 examples, uh, really defining what the curators mean by Nigerian modernism. And here you see the great preparators I met along the way installing our Lakasan, which is not only one of the important pieces, but it's the very first painting in the exhibition, kind of unlocking the whole idea of what modernism means in this project. And there you see on the right the incredible Tate Modern. So I'm going to just suggest next time you're in London, we already met some folks that are there and have seen this show and have sent me pictures back of of our artworks. Do check it out until May 10th. And the next two slides, Casey, are going to show you in more detail those artworks. I will mention as we talk about how artworks enter the collection, you'll see the name Simon Ottenberg repeated throughout these 12. And Simon Ottenberg cannot overstate the value and importance of his gift, both in 2012 and in 2020, of 143 important, significant, so significant that the Tate Modern chose to tap into this collection so significantly. And Ottenberg was a professor emeritus of anthropology at Washington University, a distinguished scholar, and we're really the beneficiary of his largesse. Next slide. And next. Here's the run of show for today. You'll be hearing from all of our team, and we're gonna start off with Amy. Over to you, Amy.
Thanks, Catherine. Next slide, please. Thanks, Casey. Hi, everyone. It's wonderful to virtually see you this afternoon, and I'm very, very excited to talk to you about a recent acquisition by a major ceramic artist on the American scene, and the first acquisition of his work that we're bringing into the collection. So Roberto Lugo lives and works in Philadelphia. He's a major contemporary ceramic artist, as well as being a spoken word artist, graffiti artist, though that's secondary in his career right now, and really a powerful educator and bringing his message to communities that don't always have opportunities for arts education. And so Roberto Lugo grew up in Kensington, Pennsylvania, just outside of Philadelphia or neighborhood of Philadelphia. And his parents moved there from Puerto Rico, so he grew up with a tight-knit family, but in a neighborhood that was devastated by the crack epidemic in the 80s and 90s. So he and his family just grew up surrounded or in a neighborhood and community under duress, lots of violence, lots of lack of opportunities in general, as well as specifically, there was no arts education in his public schools, but his large number of brothers and cousins, and they took him under his wing and became a graffiti artist and really saw how he could make art with what he had at hand, and working on murals in the neighborhood. During community college, he kind of stumbled onto a ceramics class and was just really, it spoke to him so deeply, and moved on through his education, has an MFA in ceramic and the arts. So built a career out of very little opportunity, but with lots of support from his family and local community. And so, with that introduction, the museum has acquired this vase. You see two sides of the same vase, so it's one vase, A Century of Education. And I'll speak to you in a moment about why it's called the Century Vase and the inspiration for the format. But before, I wanted to talk about Lugo's highlighting, as you can see in those diamond sections, Ruby Bridges and W.E.B. Du Bois. And in this vase, he has a whole series of these century vases, but each is unique and with its own story. So the same structure. And here he wanted to focus on education. As I said, it meant so much to him, especially knowing what it means to have few opportunities. And in the smaller triangles, there are scenes from his family's story, as well as kind of the 20th century struggle for desegregation and equity of opportunities for people of color. And as you can see at the bottom section, he he almost always uses his graffiti tags, and as well as those of his brothers and cousins. So next slide, please. So we, this week or next, depending on our exhibition and registrars team's schedules, we are installing rotations, or they are, I should say, the royal we, but the rotations will be installed in the Contemporary Craft Gallery, and we're very excited to include the Roberto Lugo vase, and it is straight ahead next to the people exiting from the elevator, and so people will be able to see it, and it will be on a very slow-moving Lazy Susan, so people will be able to see all sides, and our learning and engagement team are very excited for the school group opportunities as well as for the adult tours and visitors in general. The Preston Singletary, as you can see, will move to the right and flank Bo McCall's Do-Rag, which I spoke to at our last meeting. And so refresh of the gallery and highlighting the Lugo vase, and then to come back to his inspiration of 18th and 19th century ceramic forms. On the right, you can see the original 1876 century vase that was made by Brooklyn's Union Porcelain Works for the 1876 Centennial Exposition in in Philadelphia. And so at that point in the late 19th century, the exposition celebrated 100 years of American government and the country, industrial progress, agricultural progress, really highlighting as in the 1976 bicentennial, highlighting the white Euro-Anglo leaders, as you can see, George Washington in that central bust. Ben Franklin is highlighted immediately below in the moment where he's meeting with the Native Americans of what would become Pennsylvania. And so the original century vase highlighted 19th century and into 20th century ideas of how to talk about American history and important figures. And so you can see how Lugo keeps some of the same visual elements and the forms, but then reconfigures it into telling the stories that are so important for him. And I'm really excited to tell you that last Wednesday I attended an event honoring Roberta Lugo at the Maryland Governor's Mansion, Government House. Hosted by First Lady Dawn Moore, as she has recently reinstalled the first floor public rooms. And as we have been doing here at the Newark Museum of Art, Government House under Dawn Moore's direction has reinstalled the artwork from the State Archives collections and highlighting an increasing representation of artworks by artists of color. The state archives do not include a Roberta Lugo vase, so they borrowed 4 century vase from the Baltimore Museum of Art. And so with this inaugural event, Roberta Lugo spoke, and just is so inspiring to hear him speak, and an honor to be there and attend the event and to meet all of the people involved and to tell them about the work we're doing here at the Newark Museum of Art. And so I welcomed many people to visit and have received parallel invitations. So the curatorial team and I are always working to be ambassadors for the collection. So rather than going on more, we'll go on to the next slide. And we were very excited to be able to bring not one, but 2 works by Roberta Lugo into the collection. And so here you see the front and back of our recently acquired Sojourner Truth teapot. Lugo again uses 18th and 19th century teapot forms, but then brings imagery of people or events he wants to celebrate, and almost always includes his graffiti tags and his version of traditional ceramic fish scale embellishment and his vision. And Trisha and Lena and I are talking, well, the whole team is always talking about future rotations, but we're thinking of ways that we might include this teapot in Seeing America. So stay tuned, these things take time, but before then, please do come see the rotations in contemporary craft. And I want to turn this over to Trisha. Thank you for your time. Next slide.
Thanks, Amy. Hi, everybody. So great to see this turnout. I hope everybody's having a good fall so far as it rushes past us. And it's great that we have this forum to share some of the exciting things coming up and new things coming into the collection. What I wanted to share today was a recent purchase, a director's level purchase of this print by the artist Camille Billups. You can see Camille in this photograph posed with some ceramic works, another ceramic artist. She's best known for her films, but she's also a very prolific ceramic artist. And she and her husband, James Hatch, were also the archivists and hosts of an ongoing salon for years and years in Manhattan. So really part of a wonderful cohort of contemporary artists. And why are we acquiring this print right now? Maybe the question. It's she hasn't been in our collection heretofore, and this print is titled Untitled KKK Boutique from 1993 was created as a suite of works related to a film, a feature-length film that she made with her husband, and that was created in 1994 called The KKK Boutique Ain't Just Rednecks. And so you can see her style is very satirical, scathing, probing race history in the United States. I'd like to read from the description on the IMDb, the Internet Movie Database, which is sort of the go-to source for if you're looking for any film. Described this as a docu-fantasy, and that was a term that I think Camille applied herself. So it's a fantasy, but it's also a documentary. She's mixing fact and fiction. And they say, like a modern Virgil and Dante, Billups and Hatch lead the film's cast through a tour of the contemporary landscape of racism. So it's an important body of work. It kind of goes with our Robert Colescott painting and bringing some of the more difficult topics about race in the United States to our audiences. But if we can go to the next slide, the reason it's coming in now, we purchased it, we were looking for it to show it in an exhibition we're putting together for next year. You see it up here at the top of this slide. The working title is In Dreamtime, Algira, a Center for Contemporary Art. And for those of you who don't know, Algira was a really thriving, extraordinary space in Newark for 35 years, where so many wonderful artists had opportunities, had exhibitions, and we did so many collaborations over the years. The gallery is no longer there, so we're working on an exhibition with multiple exciting collaborators to celebrate Algira, and Camille is one of the artists who showed at Algira. And in 1997, she had a show there, and we at the museum screened the film, The KKK Boutique Ain't Just Rednecks, and hosted a public discussion, a panel discussion with the directors about the content of the film. So we felt this was a really great opportunity, not only to include this work in the exhibition, but to revisit our history institutionally as a leader in a forum for public discussion. And this is just a little on the shoes that you see here are a wonderful sneak preview of the exhibition. These are going to be loaned by the Hatch Billups collection, which the studio where Camille and James lived for many years and hosted their salon is still intact, and it has an incredible archive and so many wonderful artworks. And these shoes were actually created by Camille Billups and Judy Bloom-Reddy, another collaborator, for the film. So we thought it would be a really lovely way to bring the film to life to include them in the exhibition. So stay tuned. And again, I'd like to give a shout out to Ryan Lee Gallery, because we can't do these kinds of projects without so many people leaning in and helping us find the work and make it happen. So more about that later. And I think now it's my pleasure to introduce Athika Ali. Athika, take it over.
Hi, everybody. We can go to the next slide. So I have a special slide here as opposed to others, because I'm introducing you to a commission project that's going to result in 2 new acquisitions, as well as programming to connect with the NMOA community. So we can go to the next slide. So this project is going to be with the Siddhi community of Karnataka in India. They are this African diasporic community. They originated in Central, East, and South Africa, and they went to India, or they were actually brought over in some cases. And this happened over centuries, starting as early as, the 800s, possibly even earlier than that. In the 16th century, the Portuguese brought them as slaves when they were colonizing India. So, they've been there in South Asia for centuries, for actually more than 1,000 years. But they've remained this kind of isolated, tight-knit group, not really intermarrying with others. They're really on the margins of society in India and Pakistan, despite adopting a lot of the cultural values of where they're currently living and were actually born. We can go to the next slide. So the women in the community have been quilting, and mostly that's been for practical reasons, to keep yourself warm, to keep your family warm. They also create these quilts as part of dowries. But they have gotten recognition over the past 20 years or so for their textile art. And here you can see a group of quilt artists working on a project in collaboration with curator and social practice artist Anitha Reddy. We can go to the next slide. So the city quilting artists have a unique approach to quilting. They start with the backing material. It's usually a cotton sari. Then they sew upon this cut pieces of castaway or recycled fabrics. They use this very simple running stitch. Nothing is really planned or repeated, which is, not like the more typical quilt pattern you might be familiar with. We can go to the next. So the resulting design that you see here is abstract, random, and really non-repetitive. I'm showing you two quilts that are actually already in the NMOA collection. You can see we got these works in 2006. We can go to the next. So the abstract quality is something shared with quilts made by the Gee's Bend community in rural Alabama. And, we have this quilt by Gee's Bend that's there on the right. You can see how that one is very abstract, like the city quilt. And both of these groups are African diasporic groups. So that's kind of interesting thing that we might be touching upon as we continue to look at the city community. We can go to the next slide. So basically, we're excited to have an opportunity to feature the city quilting artists in the community lab of the Arts of Global Asia. And I'm sure some of you have gone up there. It's a unique space that's been developed to form connections with the Newark Museum of Art community through artist-led projects. So we are working with the artist and curator Anitha Reddy, and we're working on developing this space. And you can see this rendering, and this is just a work in progress. But the space is going to include information on the city community, a documentary film on the city quilting artists and Anitha Reddy. She's been working with them for over a decade. We'll have one of our quilts from our collection, and we're going to have an interactive station where visitors can try out the city quilting technique. There's also going to be information on workshops and activities when the NMOA community can contribute to a quilt through sharing their migration stories, donating clothing, and customizing pieces of fabric. Next slide. So alongside the NMOA quilt that the city quilters will be asked to create, they will also be working on an ancestry quilt to trace their heritage from Africa to South Asia. And Anitha has been asking them questions like, where are you from? What does Africa mean to you? So the image that I'm showing you is actually not the ancestry quilt we'll be getting. This was, a particular project for the Bengaluru airport, but it'll have perhaps kind of a feeling like this. Next slide. So, this is the timeline. So hopefully you'll be interested in this and want to know more, and maybe participate. So we're going to launch it in February 2026. All next year, we're going to be running drop-in sessions and workshops for contributing to the NMOA quilt. And after we collect all these things that we want, we'll share it with the city quilters in December. In April, we'll expect the completed quilts, and we'll be displaying them somewhere in the museum. And then in May of 2027, we hope to have a residency with 2 of the quilters, as well as Anita, and do several different types of programmings, including a longer workshops and a shorter event. This is a international collaboration that that the museum is actually known for. You know, um, we had Tibetan monks create a mandala in the Arts of Global Asia galleries. So it's very exciting that we're going to have this new opportunity to work with the this whole group of artists, and we hope to have them here next year or in 2027. So with that, I'm going to pass this on to Elena. Thank you.
Thanks, Athika. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm going to be talking to you about this painting from David Antonio Cruz. And this is kind of a unique part of the presentation because the painting that you see on your screen is not the painting that we acquired. So this is a long-term loan from David Antonio Cruz and his gallery, and I will explain why. So David is he's born and raised in Philadelphia, but also his family is Puerto Rican, so he moved back and forth between Philly and the island. And he also has connections to Newark. He was at Project for Empty Space for a long time, and he currently lives and works in New York. And the painting that you see and the painting that we acquired are both from the same series. The series is called I Take from the Center to Get a Better Slice. And the entire series is about kind of chosen family and the ways in which queer community finds each other and celebrates each other. And so David, in a lot of ways, is a very traditional painter, a traditional portrait painter, but he also plays a lot with kind of these portraiture conventions, like these really kind of lush interiors and almost these regal kind of accessories. And he's depicted all of his sitters wearing kind of these bubble helmets as a way to kind of create this futuristic sense, but also as to depict protection, that he's protecting his community, that he's protecting himself. And here you can see that his bubble and his friend's bubble are kind of merging and kind of, again, giving that really intimate familial sense. So unfortunately, because this is a long-term loan, and I am not able to show you the actual painting that we acquired because, could I have the next slide, please? The painting that we actually acquired is up for the National Portrait Gallery's Outwin Prize, which is this incredibly prestigious prize for portrait painting that happens every 3 years. And one of the most notable winners was Amy Sherald. The painting that she painted, Miss Everything, was the winner in 2016. And as part of winning the Outwin Prize, in addition to a cash prize, you also get the opportunity to create a portrait of a notable figure. And as part of Amy Sherald's prize, she was able to paint Michelle Obama's official First Lady portrait. So David is one of 3 finalists for this incredibly prestigious prize. So when his gallery asked if we were okay sharing this painting as part of the competition, we were like, of course. One, we want to support artists, and we don't want to stand in the way of an artist kind of receiving this recognition. But also it's a great opportunity for the museum as well to, kind of as Catherine mentioned at the beginning, having our work on view and traveling. So ideally, he was supposed to find out if he had been a winner, or been the winner in October, but because of the government shutdown, that was postponed. So I had been hoping to be able to present the actual painting, but there is an embargo on the image until the winner is announced. So I apologize for that, but I hope you all understand that, yeah, this is a very exciting opportunity for him and we want to follow the rules. So can I have the next slide, please? In the meantime, the long-term loan, So You're Back Again, You Are Here, and We Are Here With You. All of his titles from this series come from song titles, and they're all kind of smashed together. But both paintings in this series, both the long-term loan and the painting we acquired, I thought really played nicely and complemented some of the double portraits that we already had in our collection, such as Mary Cassatt's painting of her sister-in-law Jenny with her nephew, and Asher Duran's portrait of his wife and her sister. So again, these really intimate familial portraits where the sitters are kind of draped on each other or touching, and that you can really get that sense of closeness. And so I saw David Antonio Cruz's paintings as kind of a contemporary counterpoint to that. And again, expanding the definition of family beyond blood. And you can see in the portrait that we did acquire, or that I'm sorry, that is on long-term loan, the 2 sitters, David, who is on the left, and his friend who's draped in kind of these glass beads, this collar, they're cradling a photo of David as a child at his family's land in Puerto Rico. And David explained that to me as kind of, as a queer child, as a queer kid, like kind of protecting his younger self and kind of ushering him into the future. So I really loved this idea of, again, family connection, expanding the definition of family, but also of protecting your community. And can I please have the next slide? So this is my final slide, but because this will be on view for the next couple of years, we decided to include it in our Liberty and Legacy tour, which is a self-guided tour that anyone can take in the galleries. It's also on our Bloomberg app. There is I don't know if you can see my screen. Trisha and I did put together a brochure to kind of help guide visitors through the galleries. But this is an initiative from Revolution NJ, which is a statewide initiative to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And the state of New Jersey is really kind of challenging institutions and groups to think more broadly about the revolution and kind of think about how it's reverberated into through to contemporary American culture. And it's kind of encouraged institutions to think about what they've called revolutionary values, and one of which was inclusion and exclusion. So here we thought that this would be a really great kind of stop on this tour to talk about inclusion and exclusion and who gets to be part of a community and what it means to make your own community in the face of maybe being marginalized. So hopefully you can all have an opportunity to take this tour. I think there are some really interesting stops along the tour, but also to really get into the galleries. This is on the second floor of Seeing America, and spend some time with this painting, because the photography, is as wonderful as it is, does not do the painting justice. So I hope you'll all get a chance to kind of sit with it in person. And that is it for me.
All right.
Thank you all. I'll just jump in before we
Catherine,
get to
yeah,
Hannah,
absolutely.
back to Hannah, to say, hope that was informative. It was a lot. And these acquisitions and proposals and everything you've heard about today take sometimes years to get to the finish line. And by that, I mean, we have we have a subset of the board called the Acquisitions and Collections Committee, and they meet twice a year, and that is when this curatorial team presents to them for approval to acquire any works that exceed the $25,000 threshold. You might have picked up on, I believe it was Amy who mentioned a director's level gift purchase, and that's anything that is valued at less than 25K. That the director, CEO has the jurisdiction to approve without the committee. So that's just a little bit of that background. And here, coming up all in November, you'll be hearing more from our, website and bulletins and all of that. But coming up right away this weekend is our Community Day for Amina Robinson. Our Valentine House installations experience kicks off right before Thanksgiving. And then also we're having a wonderful workshop with the collaborative artist pair, Carzola and Salome. So with that, I will turn it back over to Hannah and see if there's anything you'd like to ask us about or chat about.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So thank you. I'm going to give a little virtual round of applause for our curatorial team for some really interesting and exciting insights. And yes, we're going to open the floor for some questions. So I think we're going to make all of our faces big. We're going to remove that little slide there so you can see us. And I'm happy to ask a question to the curators. We put it in the chat. And I'm going to actually get us started off because I was really, really fascinated by some of the conversations surrounding how you made the choice of what to acquire, what was interesting to you. And I'd love to hear, for those of us who maybe don't have a very good understanding of what goes into that process, what are you looking for when you're talking about a new acquisition? And what makes a work of art stand out for you when you see something in the wild, let's say, that you think might soon become a part of our collection? And maybe I'll throw that to Catherine to begin, and then we can go
Yeah,
from there.
big question, Hannah.
Big question, huge
No
question.
surprise. I would say, just to frame an answer, a possible answer is that way back when, and Judy, I see you're on the call. Wonderful. You'll know this from being on our incredible board chair of our committee, that we drafted 5-year collecting plans. So each of the curators that you've heard from today, and including Hanon, who's not here today, really did a deep dive into the histories of their specific collecting areas. How might we go forward and draft guidelines for the next 5 years? So we've been through our first 5-year plan, and we've just introduced our second 5-year plan this past year. So I'll let any one of the curators take a stab at that. And I don't know, Trisha, you're in my interim role now, or you're in the interim for my former role. So maybe start with you.
Well, I think it's a great question, and it's because it's complicated. It's not one single thing. Sometimes there's an artist like David Antonio Cruz is somebody we were looking at for a very long time before the right opportunity came up at the right time, right? And then somebody like Camille Billups that we brought in, we presented today. Is the beautiful things that come out of working on any project, especially if it's a group show, is that you learn what's in the collection and what isn't. And we are always looking to connect, like something that fits well with the rest of the collections, but then also like when are we really truly filling a gap? Like an artist, some artists maybe way out of our price point now when we didn't originally collect them. Um, Sometimes it'd be great if somebody wants to give us a gift if it's way out of our price point. You know, I mean, those things happen. Like with the Simon Ottenberg gift, I don't know that we would have acquired all of that Nigerian modern painting and sculpture if it weren't for his, you know, we might have acquired much more slowly, in other words. And I think over the years, as you've gone through the Arts of Global Africa Gallery, you've seen wonderful works from that collection. So yeah, it is. It's a fun puzzle to try to solve because we also have to be so careful about storage and the cost of caring for works of art in the long term as we're out of storage space, everybody. So for those of you who have wondered why it's so hard, if people want to make a gift, why don't we just want to accept all the gifts? We have to be extremely, every gift we accept, we spend money on in terms of storing it, conserving it, and so forth. So it is a really thoughtful process.
And I would add just a PS to that, that the curators know that because of the storage and because of the collecting plan and because we're so intentional, this team is so intentional about how to tell bigger stories, broader stories, expansive stories through art. Unless the curators can show, now Trisha, but formerly me, where in the galleries, what is the utility of this artwork? And you saw examples of how Attica city quilts are going to be utilized, of how the Robert Lugos are going to go into contemporary craft. The David Antonio Cruz is already a loner on view, etc. The Camille Billups is going to be used in an upcoming exhibition. So very specific applications, I would say, is really critical to how we think about what we bring forward.
That's great. And it always kind of reminds me how we still, despite the fact that we do have these plans, we're very intentional with how we're collecting, that we're filling gaps, we're finding unique pieces that tell a story. We're also still, as we've always been, on the cutting edge of really acquiring work by up and coming emerging artists. And I was curious, is there a piece of art that sticks out in your mind where maybe it didn't fit the collecting plan, or maybe it was an emerging artist and you saw it, and what about it made you want to bring it into our collection? Has that happened recently to anyone, or maybe in the past? I'm sure it's happened at some point.
I'm gonna let others answer because I'm so strict. I'm trying to think. It's not like we have a list of artists that we say we're gonna do X, Y, Z, but that I would say if there's a case can be made, yes.
I'm going to put, if I may, I'm going to put Elena on the spot to talk about Virginia Jaramillo.
Oh
and
yes, great
how we
example.
came by that piece.
Yeah, so Virginia Jaramillo, her large scale color field painting is on view in Expanding Color Field. So just to give everybody kind of orient people to which painting we're talking about. She was an artist that I was interested in for a really long time. She is in her 80s. I also knew that there was kind of a limited stock of available painting by her. A lot of her work is either in private collections or in institutions already. And she was just someone that I was like, if we ever get the opportunity and it's the right painting, she is someone that I would really love to bring into the collection because when she was making a lot of these kind of color field and biomorphic paintings in the 60s, she was kind of doing it quietly, even though it was, cutting edge at the time. And she was someone who was excluded from a lot of major exhibitions because she was a Mexican American woman in the 1960s and 70s. So yeah, when the opportunity arose, and we had a very short window to kind of make this the case for acquiring this, and we had to move quickly, which was kind of stressful for me, but it was great. It was kind of kismet. So yeah, it's sometimes it's things like that where this is an artist that has incredible significance for our collection, and is a major gap. and is someone who's, you know, at least for American art, very influential, but undersung. So kind of, again, addressing those holes.
Amazing. I think, Yassine, do you have a question? I just saw your face pop up. Are you able to unmute yourself? If not, you can type it in the chat and I'll speak it for you. Oh, it seems like it's not unmuting, so I'm just gonna attempt to unmute you. There we are.
Okay,
All right,
perfect.
Yassine,
Can you
go
hear
for
me?
it. Yes, we can.
Oh, awesome. Thank you everyone for the super interesting overview. Really exciting to see some of these new acquisitions. You know, I'm really curious because I just did a walkthrough of the Amina Robinson exhibition. You know, I think the way the work is displayed can really shape how people connect with it. I'm thinking, for example, like lighting, spatial context, and the placement of different works. So I'm curious, like, whether the artists are involved in that process, or is that something that's done strictly on the museum side? Like thinking about factors like lighting, spatial context, and the placement of works and how that influences that experience and how audience connect to it. I'm just curious, like how involved the artists themselves are a part of that process, or is it mainly something that's done on an exhibition side?
What a great
If
question.
that's a
Thank you so
clear
much.
question.
Yeah, that's great.
love that
You know,
question.
not everything that we acquire is by living artists, so that's number one. I would say a really good example of an artist who wasn't necessarily in the decision-making moment, but was literally dancing in front of his painting because of where it was placed and how it was placed, and that would have been the Michelle Black that is in our Seeing America 20th and 21st Century. And I don't know, Trisha, maybe you could speak to that since you we don't have you were the one that located that painting in a local
Yeah,
gallery here in
I mean,
Newark, which I think is also a really important point to just before you jump in, just to say we don't have a hierarchy, a scene of local artists live over here and you know international superstars live over here. We're kind of on a we look at art in a very democratic way, let's say. So over to you.
well, I'll just say briefly that it's another great question. That we love to involve artists whenever we can. Not usually so much about the lighting, but you know, like in the case with Marshall, he actually helped us. He stretched the painting himself and reframed it in the gallery because it was so large that was the only way we could get it in. So that's a great example of collaboration. I say when it comes to a show and the feel of a show in terms of the layout and lighting, the only time we get really directly involved with the artist is if it's like a solo exhibition, like somebody like Risham Sayed was very involved almost on a, like as a co-curator in creating the feel of that space, right, Athika?
Yes, indeed. So yeah, I mean that was a project in which we we asked them to like create work for the exhibition. So they had to be very involved. And yeah, it was it was a collaborative process in terms of exhibition design. So yeah, she was very involved and uh, you know, there's actually a lot of lights in her work, in her smaller installations, so that lighting kind of really worked into this display of her art.
That's so great. I'm curious, for those artists who are not living, are there ever any like documentation that comes with an artwork that gives parameters for how it's supposed to be displayed? And if so, could you talk about what that could look like?
That's most definitely the case, not with all artists, but with a lot of artists. We always check the accession file, you know, go back and see, are there notes about, you know, how far apart we can space, if it's a serial work? Does the artist have really strong opinions about that? And the only thing I wanted to bring up about the lighting and the feel of the exhibition is also a lot of times that's determined by conservation. And I think like in the Amina show, Amina Robinson show has a lot of textiles and fragile works on paper. And so you might have a little bit more subdued kind of mood lighting feeling. And that's always interesting because the design team, the exhibition design team has a plan, conservation has their rules and limitations, and then the curator or the artist might come in and nudge and see, can we raise it a few foot candles right here at least? You know, if there's a certain piece we want to spotlight, but it's a fun collaborative process.
And I see Anju on the call. I'm sure she's happy to hear that from you.
Absolutely. Are there any other questions that anyone has? If you do, I see Anju just popped up. Do you have a question that you'd like to say or a statement about working with the curatorial team to ensure that the artworks are ready to be viewed, but also viewed in the proper, most protected way?
Oh,
I'll
and can you introduce yourself, Yeonju?
Yes, absolutely. Or I can do it as well. So Yeonju is our conservator, and we're really, really lucky in that we have a conservator on our staff. Many museums don't. We're one of kind of a few in the country, at least on the East Coast, right? Except for like really large, like the Met, for instance. So Yeonju, who some of us have had the pleasure of having a tour of the conservation lab, is our conservator. And you're specifically like a paintings conservator, right, Yeonju? That's your main specialty. Oh, for some reason, I think you might still be unmuted, or we're not able to hear you, even though you're not
Oh,
on mute. There we go. All set.
okay. Yes, I
Sure.
have to change my microphone. Hi, I'm Yeonju Kim. I'm a paintings conservator in the museum. So yes, thank you for mentioning about the lighting, Trisha. Actually, I was smiling. Yes. So yeah, a lot of artwork, especially paper or textile, even some leather, ivory, they are very light sensitive work. So I'm sure a lot of people visit the museum and wondering why this is so dark. I cannot even see it, but we are doing this for our future generation. So we want to keep as long as possible. So yeah, that's why we lower the light intensity to preserve artwork. And of course, in our museum, there's no UV light, but the artwork can get damaged not just only by the UV, but also the visible light. So that's why museum is dark.
Thank you. That's so great. So I think I just we have a few more moments. So if there are any final questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, or you can take your video, you can turn it on from being off, and we can see you just like Yassine and Yeonju. But otherwise, I actually wanted to touch back to the conversation about our loan objects because it's so important and so interesting that we do loan so many outside of our institution. But I was curious, is it normal to be loaning this volume of artworks? Are we unique? Do they usually go overseas this far? Could you give a little context to kind of the field?
Sure. Thanks, Hannah. Yeah, I think at one point we created a really lovely graphic, like a series of maps. Like we lent our Hopper, our famous Sheridan Theater, to Hopper's New York, right across the river. So sometimes very close by, sometimes very much in New Jersey. We have works on long-term loan to the state houses and to the state museum and to other entities where the conditions match our requirements. But then we go national. We have we lend all over to major museums. Just now I was in Chicago. We lent our Barthe to the first homosexuals exhibition at the Wrightwood Museum, which now is going to travel to Basel, to Switzerland. So Basel. So yes, international, national, local, and everything along the way. I think the 12 artworks, and Andrea Cow is our associate registrar for loans, outgoing loans, will tell you it's an extraordinary labor-intensive process. We request at least a year's notice from when we begin to evaluate whether we're going to indeed lend. Is there going to be a scholarly catalog? What is the nature of the exhibition? Is it additive? We go through a whole process with our collection stewardship committee that our registrars lead up. And so there's our conservators, our very first stop is really with Yeonju, and will she say, not stable enough to travel? And so that immediately comes off the list. Sometimes it's one artwork, like I just mentioned with the Barthe, and sometimes it's as many as a dozen. That would be, I think the curators can confirm that that would be on the larger size in terms of volume. But all that to say, the strength of these collections is what prompts these requests. And I think those of you who know our museum well, and I know a lot of you do, this won't be news, that these are, we often have to say no. And we do that also because wear and tear on artwork. Anytime that pink crate I showed you, that was in the cargo terminal you start out at a terminal on the East Coast if it's going internationally, usually JFK. You land in London, and the crates are palletized, and it's a very, very laborious and expensive undertaking. All of the expenses are covered by the borrowing institution. So I don't know, I kind of rambled around there, but I hope I touched on a few of your points, Hannah.
Absolutely. Yes. It seems, having worked in a few museums, it seems like we loan a lot because our collections are so strong. And it's great to see them being seen internationally, nationally. And I just like to brag about it, I think. I think it's really,
Yeah, I think it's a really good thing to crow
so
about.
cool. I
We
also love
rarely
the color of
take
our
things
crates.
off the wall, but we sometimes do when the show merits it.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Thank you all so much for your time, and thank you to all the members who are on the call with us. We are excited, of course, for our continued events that Catherine mentioned to us about what's upcoming over the course of the next few months and in 2026 as well. There's a lot that's upcoming, and maybe specifically the Algebra show that we were able to get a little sneak preview of. So you'll, of course, hear from us. You'll see invitations going out soon. And in November, again, we have many exhibition moments, I guess you could say, like the Valentine holiday exhibitions, and we have tours. We also have our celebration of our Learning and Engagement Center being reopened, and the emphasis that we have on education moving forward. Education and art, of course, is what we do. It's our bread and butter. And thank you so much for all of your support as members. And again, just round of applause here for our curatorial team and for all the work that they do to keep our collection really safe, really beautiful, and really accessible. So thank you all so much. Hope to see you soon. Have a great